What's up? Welcome, everybody, to my monthly live. These are videos that are a little more spontaneous than my other videos. They're inspired by things that have happened to me recently and that I'm pondering. And I think, oh, that would be cool to share and get your thoughts on what I'm thinking about. So, today's live is inspired by a voicemail I got from my neighbor that frankly irritated me. And so I wanted to share it with you and then share some thoughts I had and maybe get some thoughts from you about what you feel. So this is the.
Good morning, Kai. What's happening? Hey, Kai, did you know some lady got attacked on Bronson? She was walking, and I know you walk a lot. So, hey, I just want to kind of give you a heads up. Don't go walking by yourself, okay? All right, well, I know that's a big order for you, but hit me later.
Okay, so if you didn't get that, basically, my neighbor wanted to let me know that someone had been sexually assaulted in my neighborhood a couple of days ago, right where I walk every day. And he wanted me to be careful. I shouldn't go walking by myself. And then he also acknowledged that that was going to be a big order for me not to go walking by myself, which he was correct. Now, what I found interesting was when I heard the message, I got really angry, like really livid. And it wasn't towards my neighbor because he's a thoughtful, considerate, generous person. And he was obviously letting me know that out of concern for my well being and safety. But it irritated me because it bumps up against the way I choose to live in my life so that I can live as freely and um, as far removed from a fear based way of looking at things as I can. And so when he told me that, it forced me to put into the forefront of my mind a dangerous situation that was happening in my small part of the world. And I have always looked at it like the longer you live, the more some jacked up stuff is going to happen. It's just the nature of the game of life, right? It's also why people in their teens or their 20s are much more adventurous and daring a lot of times because they haven't had as many of those jacked up situations happening to make them go, oh, snap. I see a dangerous situation. I must find a way to control it and make sure do something to make sure it doesn't happen again. But then when you get into your 40s and 50s, those experiences that have been not so pleasant add up and you start to react to things in the world by finding ways to prevent them from happening. So we'll use this real life example. So my friend's response to learning that a woman got attacked in the neighborhood is to basically suggest that I make my world smaller by not going for walks by myself, which would obviously in some way limit my ability to go for walks. But here's my thing. Fucked up shit is going to happen whether you walk around in the world scared or not. Now, hopefully, you don't have many of those experiences, but we can only do so much in terms of controlling the good and the bad that happens in our lives. So, if it's going to happen anyways, I prefer to walk around the world not afraid and not making fear based decisions that make my world smaller than it has to be. So, it's kind of like, do I want to walk around scared and looking over my shoulder, or do I just want to walk around feeling good and safe in this moment and dealing with things as they come into my world? I also think that mindset on an energetic level can impact how other people respond to you. It's kind of like how dogs respond to humans, right? A dog can sense if a human being is afraid of them and they will behave differently than towards a human being that they can tell isn't afraid of them or is comfortable with them or whatever. I do think being aware of how we think as we walk around the world can impact some of those situations coming into our sphere. Not all the time, but it's just something to think about, which is kind of the purpose of this video, is just to get us pondering outside the box of something that drives me loony, which is the saying, well, that's just the way it is. So in this situation, well, women are the weaker sex, they're more vulnerable. That's just the way it is. Like, I insist we reject that statement every time we hear it, because I view it as a lazy statement. That's just the way it is means that you have accepted how it is and you have no interest in think of any way to change it or any desire to change it. And I'm like, if you make the choice to say that's just the way it is, then there is no chance. There's no chance to possibly create a different scenario in the world. So, next time you hear someone saying that, be like, yeah, that would be a no. The other thing I want to acknowledge is, even though I find it more peaceful to walk around in the world not afraid and not worrying about looking over my shoulder, I do want to acknowledge that, we do have negative experiences sometimes, and sometimes people are afraid. I don't want to diminish that experience or that feeling. Um, I was actually schooled recently by my landlord. We have a woman in the building whose partner was leaving for like a month, and she was feeling nervous about being by herself and wanted some extra security, like an extra lock or something. And I was like, oh God, like, the building's secure. Why do people always have to live in fear and think the worst? And my landlord called me on that shit. And he was like, well, I'm a man, so I can't possibly ever know what it's like to be a woman in this world. And so if I can't know it, my responsibility is just to honor her feelings and do whatever I can to make her feel more safe. So obviously, I'm in the man camp in this situation where I was like, oh God, why do we always have to be so afraid? But he schooled me, because just because I view it that way doesn't mean other people have to view it that way either. So just want to honor those who are committed to, wanting to do things pre some negative thing going down that makes them feel safer. Another thing I wanted to talk about in this regard is, and I really think if we think about these things and just practice them or experiment with them in our life more, we could actually change society and our culture and how we look at these things. So, back to the scenario. A woman gets attacked. My neighbor calls me, tells me to be careful and that I shouldn't go out walking by myself. So, something goes down bad, and the choice was to focus on the victim or the potential victim and what that person can do to make everybody feel more comfortable. My thing is, why do I, the potential victim, have to make my world smaller? Why can't our first focus be like, what's up with that dude that tried to attack the woman? And what can we do for that guy who obviously has problems to make the chance of him doing that in the future less? And I'm not a fan of like prison system. It doesn't rehabilitate people. I'm more of a fan of what happened from the day that dude was born up until the point that day he decided to attack that woman that jacked him up so much that he made such a horrible choice. How about we look at that? Now, that is not an easy thing to ponder and look at, right? The lazy choice is, well, that's just the way it is. So, oh, potential victim, you should make your life smaller so we don't have to deal with this big part over here, which is, why are certain people in our society moved to do such horrible things? Because I do believe when a society makes choices for the collective so that the entire collective feels safe and secure and has a fulfilling life, people are motivated to do that stuff. But looking at this part as the first point of focus and figuring out how to solve these problems, yeah, we don't do that because it's a lot more work. I'm willing to acknowledge that. So even if we don't like do the heavy lifting work of like, let's go back and look at how these people behave, At the very least, when some bad shit goes down in the world and we hear about it, let's at least train ourselves to first point our focus to the perpetrator rather than the victim. I mean, women experience this all the time. I actually want to give a shout out to the women of Iran right now who are fighting for their life, for their freedom in ways that are unimaginable to me and so brave. Because it's another example. Women are expected to cover themselves in that country because they feel that if they aren't covered, it will entice men. So, yet again, the woman must make her world smaller so that the perpetrators can live wild and free and not have to do any work whatsoever. We really need to change that. Anyways, love and positive thoughts to the women of Iran. Please send it out to them as you're watching this too. Okay, I want to share a funny story because along with all my like mindset ideas and just stepping outside of the status quo way of thinking, I do have like a practical thought about how we can feel a little more safe. This is actually tied to a self-defense situation I subjected myself to. It's kind of funny. Before I share that with you, though, I do want to remind you that my monthly lives happen once a month on the last Monday of the month. So if you happen to be watching this on a replay, perhaps stop by next month during the live so we can have some conversation. I would love that. Next month's live just happens to be on Monday, October 31st, which is Halloween. I personally am not a person who celebrates Halloween. I'm not really a fan. However, I am a huge fan of the Mexican holiday tradition of Dia De Los Muertos, which is on November 1st and 2nd. So I thought maybe next month's live could tap into that vibe. Dia de los Muertos in English means Day of the Dead. And I believe I will do a little more research before next month's live. It is considered to be a time when the veil is thinnest. And so those who have passed on can most easily collect with us still down here on Earth. So, yeah, we'll do a little honoring of the dead, maybe talk a little bit about death, which is a subject no one likes to talk about. And so, of course, that's why I would like to talk about it. Anyways, okay, so on to my final thought about how we can feel a little safe as we think about all these different mindsets and ways of looking at scary situations in our lives, specifically in terms of women feeling safer out and about. I studied Kung Fu in my late 20s and early 30s. I actually loved it. I don't know if you've ever had this situation with something you did or experience you had, but when I've ever done martial arts, it feels so familiar, like I've done it before. It's one of those things that even when I do it the first time, I've also done Tai Chi. It's like I had to have done this in another life. Part of me feels like I was a ninja in another life. That's how comfortable and familiar those practices feel to me. So I don't know if anybody else has ever had that with anything, not martial arts, but anything. If you have, let me know. I'm curious. Anyway, so I was studying Kung Fu. I actually worked my way up to a green belt. I really enjoyed the practice. So one day while I was at the school practicing, I was doing this move, which is kind of like this. You come across, which I believe was a block, and then you come up with your hand, and you're probably hitting the person that's attacking you with this hand. So first, let me show you this position of the hand because it's so damn cool. And I think it's such a powerful, simple, but powerful thing to learn. And that knowing that you have it as an option can maybe make you able to be able to walk around in the world feeling a little more secure. So anyway, so hand, use the middle finger, which I love that it's the middle finger because it's just so damn appropriate. Take the middle finger and you bend it halfway like this. I'll show you from the side. And then you take your thumb and you put it over that part of the finger. So there, like that, like that, like that. You can kind of see it. Now, hopefully you're doing it with me. Now, if you hit that anywhere, you can see it's non-movable, it's strong. This is a serious weapon. Serious. Just hit anywhere and you will be like, damn. Even if you hit on like the desk, like this isn't going anywhere. Okay, so that was the position of my hand. And so this is how I did it. Actually, let me move this out the way. So this is how I did it. I went to go do the move and I went across and up like that, right? But then when I went to do this part, I ended up not stopping in time and I hit my forehead just like that. It was not fun. I literally almost knocked myself out. I had to immediately go sit down for like 15 minutes to like wait for the cobwebs to come out of my head. The grandmaster thought it was absolutely hilarious and was laughing at me the whole time. But it was also a light bulb moment for me because I was like, holy crap. Like, it's such a simple move. It doesn't really require me like years of practice or a certain amount of strength. This little move right here in a situation where I'm on the street and maybe feeling a little unsure about someone around me could probably do some damage. Think about it. If you do this like I did in my forehead, temple, Adam's apple, this little part here, if you got in there, even the nose, one hit, one even half decent hit with this. And at the very least, that person is going to have to pause momentarily to recalibrate themselves. And in that moment, you get away. So there you have it. I share my little self-defense move with you as something that you can put in your toolkit that's simple, doesn't require any extraneous equipment, and can't be used against you like sometimes pepper spray is, to hopefully help you walk out in the world feeling a little more, I don't know, secure and comfortable. So there are my thoughts that were inspired by my neighbor's care and concern for me about a woman being attacked in the neighborhood. I want to leave you with some Albert Einstein quotes because I think they apply to this. One of the quotes that he said is, imagination is more important than knowledge. He also said, indeed, it is not intellect, but intuition which advances humanity. And so I think between imagination and intuition, we could do a lot of crazy, wild, amazing, magical things in our lives and changing the world as a whole. I was recently on a call with a group of people that I meet with once a quarter, and a woman led a guided meditation for us. And afterwards, she shared with us that using your imagination, they've done studies that when you use your imagination, you actually light up like 11 parts of your brain, which I was like, whoa. So I leave you with that and invite you to use your imagination to think of ways to get out of this mindset of that's just the way it is, so that we can imagine our way to more enlightening, rejuvenating, adventurous ways of living our life that aren't connected to being afraid. All right, well, that's it for this month. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next month on the 31st of October. Love you. Bye.